Can be hard when you grow up. People fill you with doubt. You start thinking about what you're gonna do now. And it's do or die, gotta make it count. So lose your worries, let your problems go on until my whole body burns out. I ain't never gonna slow down. I ain't never gonna slow down.
Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about generational mindsets. Now the blog that I wrote that came out yesterday is going to be talking about the generational mindsets. We talk about many types of different generations, the generations that we are familiar with. We do have to look at the aspects to generational mindset. What is that? Because a generational mindset is literally how one generation thinks and then how the next generation think. There's going to be many concepts we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the concept of how easy times create weak men create tough times create strong men create easy times. We're going to be talking about that, how that cycle goes, but then we're also going to be talking about how one generation says that the next generation is weaker than what they were. Why does that happen? Is it because of that same cycle? No, because it just seems like if we're weak, we're saying that the next generation is weaker. You don't necessarily hear generations saying that our generation was so weak, but the generation after us is a lot stronger. Ideally, we would maybe want to say that, but it doesn't happen. And if it does happen, it doesn't happen readily. This blog right here is going to be helping us understand generational mindsets. We're going to have a full conversation on it. I encourage everyone to check out this blog if you are any of these generations that we talk about today. It's going to give you a good understanding, maybe even a good laugh, because you're going to say, that's so me. But let's get into that blog right now. All right, everyone, if you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and to share this video and or audio because this one is going to be good. Because when it comes to generational mindsets, I have to understand that I am no different than this blog. I am no different than the past generation. I'm no different than the generation that's coming up. I'm going to have a very similar mindset to this. I'm going to say our generation is the strongest. The generation that comes after us is weak and fragile. And I mean, you probably heard me talk about it on the podcast because you look at it, but yet you can't see it if you're living in it. Think of someone who's being abused. They might not see a way out of it. Maybe someone who's being mistreated, they might not see that they're being mistreated because maybe all they were looking for was someone to keep them safe or someone to be a friend or a partner. So we become misguided in the sense of we look for something, but we sacrifice something else. But yet we don't understand what we sacrifice until it's made aware to us. Privilege is invisible to those who have it. So if we don't know what we have, we're always going to curtail that, oh, we had it more difficult. Or maybe you might say we have it pretty easy. If, again, you're looking at mindset. But most people are going to say, you don't know the struggles I've went through. You don't know my past history. And then sometimes there's going to be people who say, I don't know your struggles. I'm so sorry. I don't want any pity party. But yet, people do. They're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. You had such a rough childhood. And you probably heard it on the podcast when I tell people about my history and stuff like that. They're just like, oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm like, I'm not. I would rather go through that so I can experience it, so I can live it. I need to give my kid, my children, hard times. I'm not here to give them a weak life. I'm not here to give them easy times because I have found that there is a system to create stronger generations. You don't have to follow the system if you want to develop a weak generation. That's perfectly fine with me. I'm going to fix the people who want to be fixed. I'm going to help the people who want to be helped. I'm going to help the people grow who want to grow. That's what it is. Because I just can't force mindset on the people, but I can give some awareness to people who are unaware. So just taking a look at these generational mindsets really quickly, we're just going to be looking at the more recent ones. We're not going to be going too far back. We want it to be relatable to anyone who's currently around and maybe can look back at these as being something as, okay, that makes sense. Number one, we have baby boomers born 1946 to 1964. Then we get into Generation X. That's going to be people born between 1965 and 1980. Then we get into millennials. They're born from 1981 to 1996. Then we get into Generation Z. They're going to be the people born 1997 to 2012. So those are going to be the ones that we're looking at. And of course, we have our current generation. People say it started around 2010, but again, it could be 2010, 2012, depending on what article you look at. And their generation is called Generation Alpha. It's almost like, why did we start with Z and now we're going to A? Number one is what I'm thinking about. But also, Alpha sounds pretty darn cool. I would rather be a generational Alpha than a Gen Z type person. You know, Gen Z sounds like some type of zombie movie or something, right? Either way, I wasn't born between these years, so I'm not Generation Z. I am considered a millennial. However, you're going to find that when you read the description, when you read the blog that talks about the different types of people and what they are going for, what type of personalities they have, you're going to think like, is this almost like a horoscope type of thing? This is just personality, right? The majority of personalities. So again, millennials were focused on experiences, personal growth. I mean, we go down that line, right? And we are also criticized for the reliance of technology. We need our smartphones, et cetera, calculators. We were probably the last generation where teachers were like, you would not always have a calculator in your pocket. You have to learn math. This right here is proof that with time, things change. And so do mindsets and so do ideals. Because if we look at Gen Z really quickly, and then we're going to get into a full conversation, it is known for its tech savviness. So again, you're going to have that phone in your pocket. And you're going to have more diverse situations. So you're going to be more inclusive to people. And you are going to have a sense of justice for any unjust to different types of group of people. So you are going to be those people who see social media. You're going to see the good, you're going to see the bad, and you're going to develop a bit of morality via social media versus reality. All of this can be very confusing. What I will say is, regardless of what generation you're in, if you are in one of those generation alphas, again, you're still young. You're going to probably have to get your parents' permission if you need any type of mindset coaching. But what I will say is, if you're in Generation Alpha, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have a different mindset. But you can maybe look at the generations that we're going to be talking about, the four that we're going to be talking about, and maybe you can make up your own idea to what Generation Alpha is or what Generation Alpha stands for. I'm not going to do it. I might do it at a different time when I have to readjust in the next 5 years when Generation Alpha ends. But currently, Generation Alpha is still growing. And if I say something about Generation Alpha, it could have some discrepancies. The blog has to stand the test of time. I can't use things that are being made all the time because it is still fluctuating. Generation Alpha can have a serious event in their life, in their history, and all of a sudden, everything that they have grown accustomed to changes and their mindset changes. So again, that's why it's not here, but we will be talking about Generation Alpha because they have a set of issues too. Maybe this is just generational mindset speaking from me, but what I will say is that we can see the problems, we can plan for them, so why not do it? So when you read this blog, you're going to be learning about what exactly generational mindsets are. Now, generational mindsets are going to be bringing their own values, beliefs, the idea of what the world is to them. For example, the world is my oyster. The world is my playpen, whatever they want to consider it, right? Think of the evolution of the 9-to-5 worker. We have a 9-to-5 worker. We have the nuclear family, the wife, the father. The father is working. The wife stays at home. And how that has evolved. Today, we have women who go out, start their own businesses. They wait to start a family until later in their life and establish career. We have women who go out who maybe want to have a family, but they want to have a career first instead of having a family. What they did in the 40s, where they would have a family at an early age and maybe be dependent on the man. So we can see the span of what happened maybe in about 40 to 50 years, how one mindset was, I'm going to be a part of this family. I'm going to support my husband and I'm going to depend on him to provide for the family versus now you don't necessarily need a husband or anyone to take care of you. You're able to do that by yourself. Now, again, there's different aspects of different people. For example, if you are a feminist, you're probably going to think in a totally different way than someone who might be more traditional valued. you have to understand is the way you think is how you think. So there's nothing wrong with if you are a feminist. There's nothing wrong if you are pro-male. It's just your upbringing. It's just your mindset. What I will say is that you shouldn't have a hatred for a type of person. Feminism sadly has gone toward that. So it has turned more into misandry than it has feminism. But there are still feminists who believe in helping women excel, exceed, and to do well in life, not at the expense of any other or the hatred of men. And then there's going to be males who, again, for some reason they hate women. They are misogynist. But for some reason, the generations that are up, growing up, maybe 18 to 24 right now, they will call a guy a misogynist if they do not value women empowerment. And it's not that these men don't value women empowerment. It is just that they are operating a sense of traditional values. If you want a traditional man, but you don't want to be a traditional woman, is that a fair trade? It's not misogyny, it's reality. We're not going to get into the arguments between both sides because it could be a whole podcast on it. But what I will say is that just because a certain group or age is thinking in a certain way, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they're thinking different. Their worldview is different. Whatever happened in their life set them up for their adulthood, right? Their foundation set them up for who they are. Maybe they're extremely extrovert, right? I'm super gung-ho. Let's hang out. Let's party. For example, think of like the YOLO crew. These people doing all these crazy things, running around, eating Tide Pods. I mean, Jesus, what are we doing? But these people, they're just doing what's trending. They're doing what's popular. They see nothing wrong with their actions. And it's going to be nothing wrong with their actions because they're doing what is appropriate to them, to what their peers are doing. Now, do I condone what your peers do? And if your peers do something, you should do it too? No, I don't condone that. But we have to understand there's something called mob psychosis. It could be peer psychosis. So if my peers are doing this, it only makes sense that I do it. If my generation is doing this, it only makes sense that I'm doing it. Sometimes you might hear something like, oh, you're an old soul or something like that, and they listen to oldies or they have a different worldview. So for example, what happens with many teenagers is they do their best to conform to the environment. They wear the clothes, they speak the language. So if they have a certain language, a certain slang, vernacular, whatever, they're going to copy that because that's going to help them fit in better with the crowd, with their peers. If you know anything about the human biology, we need to feel like we are a part of the community. So we conform, maybe sometimes in a worse way than if we were raised by effective parents. The problem is, what do you do as a parent if your kid is going down the wrong path? Get him a mentor, get him a coach, get him some help. It can't be you. I understand that when my kid is at a certain age, I'm done. I can give him a little bit of wisdom. I can give him a little bit of advice. But my job was not when they turn a teenager and now they're being rebellious. That's their responsibility to be rebellious. That is their mindset trying to say, what do I need to do? That young man or that young lady, they need to go find a mentor, find a coach, find someone who can help them. It doesn't matter their age. Kids, you can literally get a coach the same age as your parent, and that is going to be a more effective process than if your parent told you something, because it's not coming from mom or dad. Because mom and dad can only do things mom and dad can do, and there's certain things that mom and dad can't do. Coach, mentor, that happens from age 0 all the way up to maybe age 11 or 12. At that point, you need to start looking for other outlets. You get them an MMA coach, you get them a wrestling coach, you get them a soccer coach, a basketball coach, a volleyball coach, or whatever coach, and you make sure that that coach is going to be a positive influence in that child's life. If not, don't put them in it. All right. You get to understand what that coach is going to be teaching, what that coach is going to be preaching. If you don't like it, don't give them that coach. Here in the coaching session, we have a plethora of coaches that come on that have different personalities, different mindsets. It doesn't have to be my mindset. Find someone who's going to be a mindset that you can get with, or a mindset that you would like your child to have. Maybe strong, powerful mindset, maybe an independent mindset, maybe a go-getter competitive mindset. I mean, we can go down the list of different types of personalities and mindsets. But what I will say is that when we get into the generational mindsets, I find a lot of interesting things happen between just a span of 20 to 30 years. Because when we look at the baby boomers, right, we look at they had a war, struggle, depression, they just got out of that. There's a lot of things that they're thinking about, like, whoa, this is a lot. What do I do with this? They have to learn about stabilizing. They have to learn how to create something. They did a great job, but then they had a hard time building. It is easier to build a house that's pre-made, prefabricated, than it is to build a house just from scratch. Because one is like Legos and one is like, all right, I have to have the skill. So the skill level was different in the 40s, in the late 40s and 50s. But yet, today, if we need something, we can get it done via an app. We can get it done via a service. And so we don't necessarily have to have all the skills to do something that we want to do. I think our phone has more technology today than it did on the first space aircraft or something like that. And that just shows you how technology is so rapidly moving. Now, we're nothing like the Jetsons where they thought in 2023 we're going to have flying cars. We do have flying stuff, but not necessarily flying cars. And to be honest, I wouldn't trust people with flying cars. I mean, they'll fly right into a building by accident. The other day, a lady ran into the gym. All right, the gym wasn't even moving. There was a curb, there was a handicap sign there. She missed all of that, but she got the building all right. The building didn't see it coming. Neither did anyone else. Because it's one of those things that, oh, are you paying attention to your surroundings? Are you paying attention to what everything is? If you lose control at any given time, boom, life can change, right? Big accidents happen. But I will say, as we go down the generational pipeline, from our baby boomers, our Generation X, our millennials, our Gen Z, and now our Generation Alpha, we can look at the validity of emotion. Because not saying that my baby boomers weren't emotional, right? They had emotions, right? They are people too. But we look at how Generation Alpha is, they're extremely emotional, right? They live off their emotions. But yet, we look at millennials, they're just looking at personal growth, all right? I'm not worried about mom or dad or grandpa or anything. I'm just worried about living my life to the truest it can be. Gen Z is like, okay, I'm going to go YOLO. I'm going to go do things, right? I'm going to go record myself. And that kind of stemmed into the new generation that's out right now, Generation Alpha, recording on their phone, tech savvy. Again, there is nothing wrong with this. But we do have to give a little bit of awareness now, because if we are looking at the flow of everything, everything goes good if technology keeps on working. However, if technology stopped working tomorrow, what would you do? If you are a Gen Z, if you are a Generation Alpha, your whole world is upside down. You do not know how to start a fire. You do not know how to hotwire a car. You do not know how to do many different things that maybe people in the millennials or Generation X or baby boomers knew how to do. Okay, not saying that you need to know how to hotwire a car, but this is the reality. There's different skills for different generations. If we lose technology, it's almost like we go back to the Ice Age, but we don't go back to the Ice Age of prehistoric times where we're living in caves. We literally just go back maybe 2-3 generations. And the only thing you have to do if that happens is to understand this blog. You probably won't be able to read it because there's no technology, but maybe you printed it out or something, so you have it in front of you. So you might say, in order for the next step, or a good healthy step for me, is I need to go back to the baby boomers mindset. I need to have traditional values. I need to work hard. I need to have loyalty to not only the people around me, but to myself. I need to prioritize creating a stable environment for myself and my family. And guess what? This is going to be the dream that I build everything else upon. Okay? From there, you're not going to worry about technology anymore. You're worried about what your own hands can create. You're going to gain the skills. You're going to do the necessary hard work. It's not going to be easy, Most people don't even realize how difficult it is to get from point A to point B when you have Lyft and you have Uber and you literally press a button and you have someone come pick you up. Not many kids are going to know what it is like to be walking in the snow from one place to another. They're probably not going to know that because it's easy. It's easier right now. But for how long? How long is this going to last? Another 2-3 generations maybe? And then everything is going to topple over and then we reset? But what I will say is, let's not worry about what will happen, but what's happening now. Because I believe if we want to change the future, we need to understand the present moment a little bit more. And the present moment is, as I said earlier, extremely volatile. It's extremely emotional. It's extremely opinionated. And you might think that, well, most of the generations are opinionated. They have emotion towards something that they feel. But what I will say is that it is different for each generation. It's almost like if you tell yourself a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. If you say that you can conquer the world, you're going to believe it until you're on your deathbed and you didn't conquer the world. That's going to be regret that you had. But yet there is ways that you can learn to be proactive to get the things that you want. I talked about this early on, and it's about the flow of mankind, maybe generations if you want to consider it like that. But it doesn't necessarily end and start at a new generation. It's just like a flow, and eventually it resets. Tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men create tough times, and that cycle is going to repeat. So tough times will create strong men. What I have found is that there is a way to not go through those tough times and to not create easy times necessarily. Because if we know anything about it, we need tough times in order to create strong men. So if you want to create strong men, and men is not just talking about males, it's talking about any person. It could be women too. So don't think that this is only for the men out here. This is for everyone who's alive, okay? Anyone who's alive who's listening to this applies to you. If you want to be a strong individual, you have to go through tough times. You might not have to go through an immense amount of tough times. I'm not talking about like eating out the trash, and I'm not talking about going through a traumatic experience like a car wreck and going through the therapy. I'm not saying you have to go through all that sometimes. But what I am saying is that you do have to give yourself some level of toughness. What happened with the past generation of parents is that they said, oh, I had such a rough childhood. I want to give my children the life I never had. And that's one of the most dangerous things a parent can probably ever say about or to their children. I want to give you the life I never had, because it creates easy times for them. So it's like now they have an option. Oh, I have easy times. I can choose to be weak, or I can give myself tough times so then I can be strong, or my kids can be strong. What I recommend is you just create tough times for your children. Again, I'm not saying make their life super simple. I'm not saying to make their life super hard. There is a balance to what that mindset is. It depends on your upbringing, your status, your environment. Every aspect to where you are is going to play a critical role in what you need to do in order for them to have those tough times enough so they say, I'm going to be stronger because of it. And then you also instill this wisdom when they're parents, that now that you were able to grow up so strong and now you're powerful, understand that you have to do the same thing we did with you. We have to give you tough times. You have to give them tough times. If you're going to be spoiling them, giving them everything, giving them the world, I'm not saying that you can't give them the world, but there's going to be a time when they have to go through that tough moment. And if they don't go through that tough moment, they will be weak because of it. And they will have to find strength later in life, because you cannot be an adult and continue to be weak. And once the world breaks or society starts to function the way it is today, you're going to find that most people are going to gravitate towards strong individuals, not weak individuals. And the weak individuals are going to have to adapt and learn how to become strong very quickly. You don't have to adapt if you are already in the right place. If you're in the right environment, the right mindset, you are already ahead of the game. But most people aren't. Most people are thinking in their current generation. Most people are thinking stuck. And if you want to get unstuck, read this blog. This blog is going to be a huge asset in your corner. This blog right here, Generational Mindsets, is going to be helping you understand that you can make a change in your life. You can understand the different types of generations that there are. From there, you can say, all right, now that I did a little bit of history work, is literally only looking maybe the past, 80 years. We're just looking at, okay, this is what happened the past 80 years. We know history repeats itself. So we can use this knowledge. We can see where Generation Alpha is going, and we can make predictions. I don't want to make predictions for Generation Alpha quite yet, but what I will say is Generation Alpha is still building, is still learning, is still acclimating to what they need to become. But what I will say is war can change it, poverty can change it, and immense trauma and turmoil can change your mindsets. And if they don't have easy times anymore and they have tough times, they're going to become stronger because of it. So it's a very good possibility that millennials would be considered weaker than Generation Alpha later on if there's something that causes Generation Alpha to be stronger or have to be stronger and adapt to what the millennials didn't have to do. So there's so much to this. Generational Mindset's a great read. I encourage everyone to check it out today. So all in all, when it comes to generational mindsets, you might be in the mindset of my generation is the best, the other generations suck. Yes, I understand. I have the same mindset, I have the same sentiment, but then at the same time, I understand about mindset. And I understand that just because my mindset is this, it doesn't mean that my mindset can't change. It doesn't mean my mindset can't adjust. I find that the best mentors and the best coaches are the people who can look at a generation and want to learn from them, not so much ridicule them. Yes, I talk about weak men. Yes, I talk about people who are doing the wrong things, but I come from a place of sincerity. I want to not only see where you're coming from, I want to tell you what you're doing, and I want to help you adjust to a better level. Now, you might think that you don't need to change. Maybe you don't. Maybe nothing happens in your life and you keep on with that easy breezy life. But what I will say is that most people, they want goodness in their life. They want something more than what they have right now, and they don't have it. And they're struggling to get it because their current mindset is not helping them. They need to make some changes. They need to make some adjustments, and the adjustments don't have to be huge, people. I'm saying it could be a small fix, a small idea that is going to elevate you to new levels, to new aspects in your life or new heights in your life that you might have never thought before. So I encourage anyone who is thinking in a generational mindset only, read this blog, learn a little bit about yourself, learn about generational mindsets, and then ask yourself the question, is this helping me get what I need, helping me get what I want? If it's not, it's time to make some changes. And we do that here at Reven Concepts. We help people change into the person that they want to change into. We don't change people because we want you to change. We help facilitate the change that you want in your life. So that right there is going to be a testament that whatever you want, you can have. But again, there's going to be aspects of things that you have to understand, you have to learn. And then there's always a bit of morality and character that have to be present at any moment when it comes to mindset, especially. If you're doing something evil, if you're doing something malicious, we probably don't want to be a part of it. We probably won't work with you. But if you're looking for making your life better for your family, for yourself, that right there is going to be something that we can get behind, that we can help you with. So if you're interested, head over to revenconcepts.com. The link is in the description box below, and begin to change your mindset to not only think about how it's thinking your generation, but what it needs to for maybe this generation, maybe for the next generation, and maybe even for the one after that. If you're ahead of the game, you can see so many opportunities. You can almost read the future, similar to what Amazon did, the .com bubble. Who knew the internet would be so big when the internet was becoming? No one really knew, but yet there were people saying that this is going to revolutionize everything. And sure enough, it did. It changed the way we live. It changed the way we think. It changed a generation. So as you can see, one or several things can change a whole generation's mindset. It can be for the good. It can be for the worse. But what I will say is you're trying to make a positive change in your life. If you are going down the wrong path, it doesn't mean that you have to stay in that path. You can make a change. So make that change today if you so want. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.